housing. There is a push right now through the home and community-based services and developmental disabilities for, we've come a long way from the institutions. We shut down all the institutions in Alabama, and then now we have some larger group homes and what have you. But there's a really big push for individuals to live in the community. And I think one barrier to that is affordable housing. I really do.
Right.
So what does the housing service offered through DRR look like?
It's really, it's more of an information and referral service as well, because we as an agency, and this has always been like this, is we as an agency don't control any housing. We never have and we never will, just because, our agency is built on consumer control, and if we're controlling housing, well, then that flies in the face of consumer control. So what we do is we partner with different agencies, different organizations that do provide low income housing, whether that be private organizations or housing authorities or individuals or organizations that have that control housing statewide housing databases. We'll take any information that we can, and we because like you said, the need is great, and the availability is
it's limited.
Yeah.
And even if you can find a spot, you have to make sure it works financially.
Right.
So what would be, is Section 8, is that a possibility? So I'm trying to go through what some of those organizations or private, things might be.
Well, I mean, if you have a Section 8 voucher, well then you can do it, a couple of different ways. You can go through Housing Authority, but then with that you're looking at least at the very minimum a 6-month waiting list.
Oh, really?
6 months to probably 2 years. So there's that, but then there's also private housing complexes that will accept housing vouchers as well. So we try to push towards that. That way we don't have an individual that's waiting for 2 years when they could be looking at other options and get into something within a month or two.
Now, you mentioned housing voucher. I'm unfamiliar with that. What is that?
That's basically just a program that you can get through the Housing Authority, and it's just something that allows you to get into a housing situation where it allows it to be based on the income that you have, which is 30% of whatever your income you have. That's going to be what your base rent's going to be.
So, if I'm an individual and I need a housing, and now when you say income, what if I'm not working? Is that also 30% of my Social Security?
Yeah, I mean it's whatever income, whether that's SSI, SSDI, or if you're working part-time, full-time, it's income, whatever that income is.
How do you qualify for a voucher?
You would just need to contact the Housing Authority, and then they can help you determine, what the criteria is.
And what's the organization that you said, Housing Authority?
Yeah, it's the Housing Authority of the Birmingham District.
Housing Authority, Birmingham District. Now, is there a waiting list for that as well, or?
They have multiple programs. Their public housing program there's a substantial waiting list for that. But then their Section 8 program, it varies based on the individual site.
Okay.
On availability.
I feel like that's a huge thing, and I've heard questions about housing before, and I didn't know that housing voucher existed. So if you qualify for a housing voucher, and it may be some time until there's a right fit in the living environment and paperwork goes through and everything, but it would say you're certified that your rent won't be more than 30% of your income.
Right.
Now, does the private housing and the government, they accept that? And the Housing Authority, they make the difference in what the standard?
Well, there's subsidies
Okay.
that make up the difference.
Gotcha.
So, but you just don't want to put all of that on the individual.
Yeah.
So there's subsidies in place to make up the difference.
Okay. All right. I gotcha. Yeah, I think the housing authority is a really cool thing. I didn't know about that. That's huge.
Yeah, because I've been very fortunate in the fact that I do have a full time job, so I am able to make ends meet and then live in a what they call a fair market unit. Or, I've lived in fair market apartments, ever since 2007. So, and those are those can get very expensive.
Yeah.
So if you and you have to be able to afford it, and if you can't afford it, then you still have to have a roof over your head.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And, the federal government's really pushing independent living in the community. And
right.
that's, so I feel like the housing authority is going to be getting a lot of calls over the next few years.
Right.
Um, so,
But
now,
yeah, but they've been great in trying to address the need and try to be a lot more creative with with how they do what they do. So I do give them a lot of credit.